So in 2 weeks, you've got the chance to say once again, yes, we can.
Well, let's bring in our company, Galena Espinoza, Sophia Nelson, and Ezra Klein. All right, Ezra, most predictions now showing the GOP takes the House. Over the summer, Robert Gibbs said GOP had a chance to take the House. Now he says we're going to hold on to the House. Let me ask you about where you think the White House is right now in terms of message.
I didn't hear too much dissonance there. I think they're trying to do two things simultaneously. They're trying to say, look, we are comfortable that the Democrats are running a good campaign. We're confident, because if they're not, they get a lot of bad stories on that end. And on the other side, they're trying to say, listen, we are prepared, that pretty much the reality is we're going to have fewer Democrats when they return in November. And what we're hoping to do now is try to put the Republicans in a place where they have to negotiate with us by saying they now have a responsibility upon them they didn't have before. And it's a bit of a complicated two-pronged message, but I think it's basically correct. I don't think it's necessarily internally inconsistent. I'm just not sure it is smart messaging.
Yeah, I guess that's maybe the bigger question here. Is it the smartest message that they could have? You know, I look and see, you know, for example, Bill Clinton was saying over the weekend, I thought he had some great quotes. It's not enough to have voted for a new president if you will not help him govern and stick behind the members of Congress who stood for him. Those kinds of things. What do you think of their message?
Democrats?
Yeah.
I think it's discombobulated. I think it's all over the place. And I think that one of the things they ought to do is say, look, we know the Republicans are going to do well in this cycle. We don't know how well they're going to do. But that means the responsibility is going to be on them to govern. I would throw it back the other way if I were the Democrats. You know,
But I think this highlights one of the challenges for this administration, which has been crafting and controlling message. They've been incapable of doing either, and they're paying the price for it right now.
So what should their message be? They've got 2 weeks, 2 weekends left, which, let's face it, that's when people are really paying attention, not when they're going to work and getting the kids to school. Is there one message that they can settle on, Galena?
I think President Obama had campaigned on a message of change and hope. He has to get back to that. He had a mandate for both of those things, and I think the frustration we're seeing from voters right now is that he hasn't delivered on either. He has just seemingly been the status quo. People want something different, and he needs to give them that.
But Chris, the biggest thing that amazes me is he passed health care reform, and they don't talk about it. It's an amazing thing how afraid the Democrats are of the change that they've had.
Just simple word, Obamacare, resonated more than an entire message and an entire legislative accomplishment.
And that goes back to what I said about crafting and controlling the message. He has allowed the Republicans to negatively spin the one achievement of his administration. Why is he not out there trumpeting this as a triumph?
Because the polling data is telling them it's a bad thing and that it's not something they can spin. That's obviously the answer. And so the Democrats are running away from health care, which, again, amazes me, given that it is a major change that they said they would do, that they enacted.
And that doesn't inspire confidence if people are running away from what they've passed.
Absolutely.
And Ezra, let me ask you about Senator Harry Reid, who we all know is in a fight for his political life. And this weekend, he compared President Obama to the Chilean miners. Let me play that little clip.
When Barack Obama was elected president, he found himself in a hole so deep that he couldn't see the outside world. It was like the Chilean miners. But he, being the man that he is, rolled up his sleeves and said, I'm going to get us out of this hole.
I almost expected him to say that he manned up, but I think that was from something else, Ezra. So, yeah, go ahead.
I'll say that in my top 10 Harry Reid gaffes, I don't think that enters up. I mean, we were in a pretty deep hole. I don't know if folks listened to him on the debate the other day, but I mean that was much rougher, and that gets to where the messaging problems are coming from. You do have an odd situation, by the way, and it's true for both Republican and Democratic leadership. The congressional leadership in both parties cannot message. I mean, they cannot speak clearly, coherently. It is absolutely terrifying, and it's created a bit of a problem because the president can do what he can do, but it's up to them to get the members on the same page. And the reason Obama can't go to somebody's district and say, we're going to sell health care this way, is he'll say no. It's really up to the congressional leaders in some ways to provide that, here's what our agenda is and here's the way we sell it. And they really have fallen on that. And it is a problem. I mean, Reid is a very poor communicator, even if he's a very good vote counter.
All right, thanks to all of our company. We'll be talking to all of them a little more. And in what is definitely a Hail Mary for Democrats, there is, history will tell us, the fact that every day at this point in the election, things can change. Now, you could argue a lot of things would have to change in a lot of places for the Democrats to avoid disaster. But Richard Louie is looking at one thing that could make a huge difference, and that is turnout. Another is who they will vote for. And I think You've got some startling new information about all of that.
Yeah, Democrats may want to close their eyes and ears when they hear about this, Chris, because, saying goodbye, it certainly hurts. And there's a new AP Knowledge Network's poll that shows 1 in 4 who voted for Obama in 2008 maybe thinking about saying goodbye. They're not sure that they're going to be voting for their Democrat in their respective district. But 3/4 of those who voted for the president are confident enough to say they will vote for the Democrat running in their respective district, this space right here. Now, when I spoke to the AP's polling director this morning, he said, AP knows these pollees quite well because they've polled them 11 times so far. And he said that this 25% right here of Obama voters in 2008 are definitely window shopping. Okay, then there's the other subject we've been talking about, Chris, and that is, of course, the enthusiasm gap. And this data from this report right here also helps prove what perhaps some have been saying. Only half of 2008 Obama voters are certain that they will go to the polls and vote this year. Okay, that's the Democrats that voted for, again, Obama 2008. Let's talk about the McCain voters in 2008. This is the stark difference you see right here. 67%, or 2/3 of them who voted for McCain in 08 now say they are certain they will vote this year. And here's the slice that we're worried about, or folks are worried about at the moment, and that is the enthusiasm gap. These new numbers showing that the gap appears tangible and helping the GOP. This here compared to that right there. Now, the reasons behind that gap, it's not because they don't like the president. A clear majority approve of his job, but it could be the energy is dwindling. Disheartening, certainly, to the White House that might be almost that 2/3 of those who voted in the candidate for the candidate of change now believe no one can change Washington, according to this latest poll. And Chris, now, all said, about half of both Obama and McCain voters want to vote him out.
Isn't that interesting? You're shaking your
He's
head.
in trouble across the board. The polling data shows that even after, well, I don't know that I should go there now, but African Americans, he's got problems with all of his coalitions. He's in trouble.
I have to say, though, and we were talking about this in the newsroom, when I saw the pictures of Barack Obama and the First Lady, and they're striding out, and somebody in the newsroom said, all we're missing are the girls. And I don't know, maybe she softens him, or it brings back thoughts of when we all had hope, when it seemed like everything was possible in terms of turning things around. I don't know, did you get that imagery? Am I reading too much into that imagery?
No, I think you hit it exactly right, and I think that that's why they are having Michelle go out on the campaign trail now with him, because they know what she brings to his image. They know that she taps into that feeling that we all had. Only 2 years ago, it seems like forever ago, he had so much political capital, and I think the frustration voters are feeling is that he has squandered a lot of it.
Yeah, we said that just a little bit ago, Ezra, but is it just sort of bringing back the whole idea of hope and change? Is it too late for them to sort of take their own message and bring it back again?
I'm a fatalist on these things. I don't think it's hope, and I don't think it's change, and I don't think it's message, and I don't think there is anything they can do. When Barack Obama ran in 2008, the economy collapsed under Republican leadership. John McCain told folks that the fundamentals were sound as our 401ks zeroed out. But now the problem for them is that they are in charge of an economy with 10% unemployment, and there's really no hope on the horizon, not anytime quickly anyway. And so they're really, you watch these folks sort of stumbling over message, and the problem is there isn't a possible message that will save them. That's what they don't know how to do. There's no one better at wordsmithing than the folks in that White House right now. But there isn't any wordsmithing that can get you past 10% unemployment. And now Barack Obama owns the same economy that he ran so successfully against in 2008.
Chris, you talked about the First Lady softening the president, and I think that the reality is that he got hardened by Washington. It does it to anyone that comes in and they get in the White House and they're excited and they're exuberant, and then all of a sudden there's gridlock, there's anger, there's fighting, there's name calling, and I think it wears on the soul. So I think she is good for him, and I think it's good to have her out there.
All right, Galena Espinoza, Sophia Nelson, Ezra Klein, thanks to all of you. Meantime, for the tens of millions of you who are on Facebook and who use their most popular application, heads up, those apps have been selling user names and the names of their